What's up, guys? Welcome to Geek, which stands for Nerd/Geek, and if that relates to you, I would consider clicking that subscribe button. So we have the final two parts of Crisis on Infinite Earths, which is the Arrowverse crossover, which is based off the 80s comic series. Which, talking about that, I actually picked it up today. I got it today. Pretty cool. I didn't finish reading it, but it's pretty cool what I read for it, and I was able to notice some different things that are similar and things that are different from the crossover. So that's all pretty cool. But yeah, I'm just gonna talk about this will be my review for the 4th and 5th episode. I'm going to start about talking about these episodes in general, then talk about the 4th episode, then the 5th episode, then the crossover in general throughout all 5 parts. So overall, with these two parts, I really liked both of them. I definitely preferred it. I preferred it over the first 3 because I did like the first 3, but I also had some problems with, quite a few problems with. But this one I felt like it's more focused. The cameos don't just feel so out of place at some points. I feel like they work better, and it's just a pretty good ending for this entire crossover overall. So even though I was kind of a little let down with part 1 through 3, this kind of brought it up, and I really enjoyed this second half of this crossover. So talking about episode 4, this is probably actually my favorite episode of the crossover. The thing I liked about it is it has a focused story, just kind of, there's a couple little side plots and stuff, but it's mainly just a focused story about they're trapped. They're the only Paragons. It's only the Paragons are the only people left in the world, and they're trying to get everyone back. And there's a couple little side plots, but it's pretty focused on that, where especially 2 and 3, episodes 2 and 3 of this crossover kind of all over, having 4 different main plot lines and some other side plot lines. It was just too much going on. I feel like this one has a better focus, and of course there's not as many characters and stuff as you're just focusing on the 7 Paragons and a couple other characters that come into it. And then also, this is the episode where you get to see Oliver becoming the Spectre. So, of course, I didn't really like that they killed Oliver in the first episode just to, bring him back. But then, the way they did it, that's what I originally thought after episode 3. I'm now they're bringing him back as a, what? I was just kind of confused. But what they do with him becoming the Spectre, I actually think works very well in, with this, so I liked it a lot. Also, you have Flash. Again, he's a standout in this episode. I really liked him a lot. After barely being in the first 2 parts, he was more in episode 3. He's also very important in this episode, and it's just really good. And then talking about Flash, there's actually 2 Flashes in this, as you had the Ezra Miller cameo, and wow, this is my favorite cameo of all of the different cameos and stuff with it, because this one was out of nowhere, because all the other things they at least they literally just said, or is at least rumored, or somewhere. This didn't get out anywhere. It wasn't leaked at all. No one thought it would actually happen, and it turns out the story is because they actually filmed it after filming for Crisis on Infinite Earths. They added it later, and Warner Brothers hey, can you add Ezra Miller into the crossover? They're sure. And then so they filmed it. So most people did not know that most of the even cast members did not know he was going to be in it. And also it's just really cool because this is crazy how we're seeing the TV universe and the movie universe connect through the multiverse. So lots of big stuff, and it's also just a pretty entertaining scene. You figure out that so the Arrowverse Flash actually gives the other Flash, the DCAU Flash, the name the Flash from me is because he was never called the Flash in Justice League, but now he has the name. He even mentions Cyborg, talking about oh, we thought about we were thinking about the multiverse might exist or whatever. And then also they compare suits and stuff. Just a great scene. Also, another thing, this is kind of not really good or bad. So they switch the aspect ratio from normally on it they have a more TV aspect ratio, the more full screen look, but then and the scenes that take place inside the Speed Force, they switched it to a widescreen, which is more like a cinematic feel. They've never done this in the Arrowverse before, like, as far as I've seen, and it's kind of just weird. So it's kind of a weird switch, especially because they're switching between this widescreen with, like, that looks very cinematic, and then the next they're showing it with Supergirl and, like, Lex on, like, the Monitor's planet, which has the full screen, but it's also just, like, totally different color palette, as it's kind of, like, purpley there, so it's, like, very distracting, in my opinion, like, going back between them. But then the cinematic scene, like, with the aspect ratio, and even just looks better. It looked amazing. In my opinion, I really liked how it looks with the cinematic feel, and it just makes it feel, like, bigger and more like an event than just a TV thing. So, in my opinion, I wish they would have done for all the crossovers, especially in this crossover, they just had the widescreen, like, the cinematic feel ratio for the entire crossover. I would have been fine with that. I would actually like that a lot, but, whatever, just small thing I noticed. Another thing I was talking about, they should have had more of the monitor's backstory, because they said they were going to put in this episode, and they do at the beginning, and you kind of see the creation of the Anti-Monitor, but I don't feel it's enough, because the Anti-Monitor is just there, and he doesn't have any motives except being, like, he's just a generic villain who wants to destroy the universe. He doesn't have any, like, special motives, which I thought they could have done something more with this backstory. And then also with Ryan Choi, who is one of the Paragons. He's the only one. He was introduced in part 3 for the first time in the Arrowverse. It's kind of weird how they have him here, because he doesn't really do much in it. He didn't really do much in episode 3. He doesn't really do much here. So it's kind of weird. I would have rather had one of our other heroes, be the Paragon instead of him. But, whatever. I also didn't really like Lex in this episode. Now, lots of people love this Lex Luthor and this from the Arrowverse, and I don't have the same level of, like, love as some people do, but I mean, I generally like his performance, and I thought it was a pretty good Lex, except I did not like him in this episode, because if they're really the only 7 people, like, left, and they're trying to save everyone, I don't think he tried to, like, take over the world and stuff. It's just too far, like, when they're just trying to just have him be like, huh? He seems more like one of those mustache-twirling villains, like, now it's my time, and, like, I can take over the world now that there's, like, all this stuff. I'm like, would he really do that now? Like, there's not even much of a world to take over. And then, like, it just ended up being an annoying side plot, in my opinion. And then, as you go into this with this end battle, as its ups and downs, like, it has some things that I loved, some things that are not. So one thing about with this battle is you're facing off against these shadow demon things, and they're just kind of a generic army thing. They're CGI, which, of course, the CGI isn't that great in the crossover, so it's kind of weird. I prefer it when you have, like, an actual human people that they're fighting, like in Crisis on Earth X, because you're fighting human stuff. The action looks a lot. That's, like, some of the best action scenes. But in this, because it's just fighting the different CGI, it doesn't look as good because they can't make as good CGI. And also, the thing is, they can just hit them, and then they just vanish. Like, they're the easiest to beat. Ryan Choi doesn't have any superpowers. He doesn't have any training as a fighter. And yet, he's punching them, and they're just, like, disappearing. Like, it doesn't seem to be much of a threat if a regular human can just punch them and then once, and they just disappear. But then also, it was pretty... But then again, I mean, you still got all the superheroes, like, coming together for this moment. So I still like that part of it. And then also you have the Oliver fighting the Anti-Monitor in this fight. And then I was like, what is he going to say to him when he kills him? He's going to say something like, you have failed this universe? I was thinking that in my head, and he goes, you have failed this universe. Kind of, like, reminds me of I Am Iron Man, but I prefer it in Iron Man. I feel like the I Am Iron Man worked a little better than this. I mean, it worked fine, but it wasn't as big of a moment because you're just like, I don't know. There's something about it that didn't have as much as an impact. But yeah, that's what I think about episode 4. So now to talk about episode 5. So first thing I want to talk about is that how they made Earth Prime, where they're combining Earth 1, Earth 38, Supergirl's Earth, and Black Lightning's Earth, all into one Earth because of the reality reset. And I think that's really great that they did this, because now it's going to be like a lot less confusing about like they don't have to like swap realities and stuff. It's going to be a lot easier to just have like small little crossovers, like where Supergirl could go with Batwoman, or like Black Lightning could have a small crossover of Flash. And now all the Arrowverse shows, all the CW shows that are going on right now, the superhero shows are all together on the same Earth. So I just really enjoy that they're doing that. And then also there's going to be lots of interesting stuff going forward because they started it, and I feel like it will make the second half of these seasons really interesting of how they deal with being on the same Earth now. Also, you get some really great emotional scenes with Barry and Sarah, like the scene where they're talking about Oliver and stuff, and I feel it was pretty great because sometimes like the different drama aspects in these shows do not work, but I thought this was a really good scene and great acting between both of them. Also, of course, they formed the Justice League. It's not officially called the Justice League. Another just great scene, because it's something that everyone's wanted to see, is them finally have a Justice League, and we have our 7 people. The weird thing about this is that all of these people, so there's 7 of the members. 6 of them all have their own shows, or is about to get their show. Like Superman is about to have a show coming like next fall, and the rest of them all have a show except Martian Manhunter, who's just a side character in Supergirl. So it does make sense because he is a Justice League member in like the comics and stuff, but it's weird because he's like the only side character superhero who's in the Justice League. The rest are like leaders of their own show, and then he's just kind of there. Like if they have Martian Manhunter, why not have someone like Vibe or another Legends character? Like you could have the Atom. He's like a more important character than Martian Manhunter because he's basically a lead with White Canary in DC Legends. So I just don't really think that it works to have him there. And also in both of these episodes, well, he's a Paragon, but he's a Paragon who's done the least. Like I kind of forgot to mention this episode 4. He does almost nothing. He does even less than Ryan Choi. He's just kind of there. And of course, I just don't really like the Martian Manhunter in this Arrowverse because they don't have the CGI to make it look good when he's actually Martian Manhunter. They just make him John Jones, they just make him just look like a normal human for most of the movie. But even the TV show, and like even in fight scenes, like in this in battle, he's most of the time a human, and only comes Martian Manhunter later. So I just don't think he was the right character just to really have in this. But then you also have some really funny moments, especially with Ray Palmer, like where he gets all his memories back and he's like, whoa, whoa, I'm Superman and stuff. Like, I'm like, it's a super version of me, and like all that funny stuff. And then also with this in battle, again, it was just pretty cool to see. It's always cool to have all our heroes line up for this battle and against the Anti-Monitor. Of course, it is kind of weird how they like kill the Anti-Monitor in the 4th one. We're like, oh nope, he's back. So I didn't really like that how they did that, but it was a pretty cool in battle. Of course, the CGI is not the best, but it's what they have to show. The one big complaint about this is that they should have had more heroes in it. Like for this final battle, you should have all the heroes here. Like they don't have like Vibe or Elongated Man, or they don't have like almost any of the Legends except like 3. So I wish they would have been there and made this big epic battle, because it's weird that they don't have all these people with actual superpowers, yet they have like multiple people that are only just don't have any powers, and they're literally just shooting a gun. That's like all they have, like Alex Danvers. So I would have preferred to see people with actually superheroes fighting in this. than them. Also, with this episode, because you don't really reveal that the anti-monitor is like actually there until like later in the episode. So the beginning, of course, it's kind of like learning about Earth Prime and stuff, so I kind of like that. But then the middle, until you learn about the monitor's back, I just feels just really slow and really mess with the pacing, as not much happens at all. And for this crossover, it's like so much of it has been like so packed. They've been packing so much, and then there's literally were like not just like some stuff happens, like almost nothing. Like they bring in this other villain with like Bebo, the thing from Legends, which it is a Legend episode, but also I don't feel like that was the best fit to fit in this crossover. But then that's just kind of a pointless villain to have in it just because they had downtime. So that's the thing I didn't really like about this episode. But still lots of stuff about this episode. I do feel like it kind of ends off this crossover altogether really well. So overall, with this whole crossover in general, it had some really high highs, but also some pretty low lows. So overall, I feel like it was a very messy like crossover, but there's just so much like stuff that you can enjoy. I was able to look past the stuff that I didn't like, and overall I enjoyed this crossover quite a bit. Please like and subscribe. Comment down below what you thought about the crossover. If you want to see my review for part 1 through 3, I'll put a link right in the corner up there. Keep watching and keep watching Neek.